fabulous. So today we're going to be discussing managing your group venue marketing. And I have a wonderful guest for you today, which you may remember if you've been a Bridebook partner for a while. But we have Beth Wright with us today. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Beth, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Good to see a few familiar names coming through there. So I hope everyone's okay today. So yeah, I'm Beth Wright. I am the head of marketing at Artemis Venue Services Limited. We're based in Rossett in Wrexham. I'm actually currently in sunny Manchester today, but essentially Artemis Venue Services. So we own, operate, develop and promote exclusive use wedding venues across the UK. Collectively, we host over 2,000 weddings every year. And essentially, we manage the whole process. So starting at the top with generating leads, managing those through to bookings, we do catering and event management, venue management, venue development. So yeah, really kind of cover the whole spectrum of the wedding venue world. And yeah, before Artemis Venues, I was very lucky to work at Bridebook. So worked there as head of venue success for, I think it was 4 years in total. So focused on working with venue owners and suppliers across the country, supported the setup of the commercial structure at Bridebook. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit of me and my background.
Thank you so much, Beth. So as Beth said, she was head of venue success, and now I've taken over I've taken the baton from Beth to build upon the fantastic foundation that she built here at Bridebook and for all of you venues and suppliers as well. So thanks for that, Beth, and it's great to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. So I will just give you a quick intro. I'm sure you've seen me a few times on these webinars, but if you haven't, I'm Dorothy. I'm head of venue success here at Bridebook. So bringing you great content to upskill your teams and just making sure that you can be as successful as you can be in different business areas of your venue. And formally, I mention this because it's quite relevant for this particular webinar, but formerly I was the marketing manager for 5 venues in Merlin Entertainment's London venue group. So that was the London Eye, Madame Tussauds, Shrek's Adventure, the London Dungeon and Sea Life. So quite unusual venues, but we used to run corporate events, private events, and also weddings on the London Eye. So I do understand some of the challenges of being a group venue, having multiple brands, and also sitting within an umbrella brand. So yeah, quite relevant experience for that as well. So we will carry on just to let you know what we're going to be covering today, and some of it will be relevant for you, some of it won't, but we're hoping that there will be something for everybody on this call to take away and learn. So we're going to talk about managing multiple brands. So if you're a venue that has multiple brands, a bit like Artemis, or if you've got, a smaller group that you still have to manage, we'll be discussing techniques in order to do that. Talking about capitalizing on your umbrella brand. So for example, if you're a hotel, or if like at Merlin there was 5 separate brands and you had an umbrella brand with a lot of brand salience, but it wasn't necessarily specific to weddings, we'll be talking about how to best use that to your advantage. Also stakeholder management techniques and proving the worth of weddings to HQ if you have got a head office. And these two kind of go hand in hand, but we'll be discussing that. And then ensuring consistency in marketing and ops as much as possible, and some techniques that we've learned over the years. And then if we have time, which we should hopefully, the venue Q&A, we've had some questions pre-submitted from a lot of you. So we hope to answer those as best we can as well at the end. So I'll just hand over back to Beth to just give you an overview of some of the brands that Artemis manages and yeah, a bit of background.
Yeah, I guess these are some of our incredible venues that we own and partner with. I mean, each one has its unique and own identity. So I guess it's important for us to ensure that each of our venues kind of stands out. Every venue, every building every team is different. So for us, it's kind of a real importance to make sure that each of the venues has its identity, which I'll be talking more to throughout this. And I guess just an important point to note for everyone joining is that we at Artemis are always really happy to help new venues. So if post this webinar that you're interested in kind of talking to us about services, or looking for a new partnership, or looking to kind of work with us overall, we're very happy to help. So please do reach out afterwards as well.
Thank you, Beth. And we'll pop their details in the follow-up email where we send the slides and all the rest of the materials, so that you can get in contact if you'd like to. And I love all these brands, Beth. I've been to Clock Barn recently for a wedding, and I was telling Beth the other day that the pear tree is where my parents got married. So like quite like, you know, emotional, lovely brands, and fabulous roster. So we're going to go into our first section, managing multiple brands. And as we said before, this is relevant for kind of two types of venues. So multiple venues that have multiple brands, and then multiple venues that might have one umbrella brand. And I'm sure there's some anomalies out there that function in a unique way too. But these are kind of the two that we're going to be hopefully talking about solutions for and tactics. So this first point's really important, isn't it, Beth? Knowing about your individual brand's unique selling points and playing into those. So I'll hand over to you about tone of voice and all the rest of it, because I know you've prepped some great answers.
Yeah, you're letting away my secrets. So I guess just for a bit of context, so Artemis to us is very much the kind of B2B focused brand. So it's like our industry focused body, and then within Artemis we have our venues. So as I say, each one has its own like unique brand and offering, and then we also have selective venues, which is more of a B2C platform. So that's focused on it's like a channel that we use to promote the venues that we work and partner with. So then when kind of looking, you know, specifically at each of the venues and specifically their USPs, I think it's kind of like making sure that you take a step back and start almost at the beginning. Even if you think you have an established brand already, it's kind of making sure that you're constantly looking at and questioning, like, you know, what differentiates you from your competition, and therefore what are your kind of unique USPs, who like your couple target audience and demographic is, really kind of understanding the couples that are coming through your doors, the couples that you're getting leads from. To me, it's not enough to kind of just be top level, you know, millennials age 28 to 34. It's kind of like tapping further into that and being like, well, what are their interests, where are they living, how much money are they earning, what do they watch on a Saturday night, do they go out, like, so that you can then use that in order to kind of build that picture of who it is you're targeting, what's going to appeal to them, and how your unique unique selling points then pair against that. And then as you're going kind of through those phases of research, you can really start to kind of build essentially a list, which then will help you to define your tone of voice. So, you know, within your tone of voice, you'll have like your taglines. So for us, for example, so we have Old Palace Chester. Our tagline there is elegance encapsulated. At Siren Cot, it's romance running wild. And then from there, and the research that we've done, hopefully this is making sense, you then start to build out your story and the narrative and how you can appeal to those couples. And then that's where things like your imagery, your collateral kind of falls out of that. So it's always a kind of staged process when thinking about your USPs, your brand, how you're going to appeal to couples. But they're the kind of steps and phases that we go through to kind of produce our brands so that each venue stands out.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, like a really good point, because each venue is going to attract different couples. Like it's going to be possibly in a different location, it's going to have a different look, a different feel. It may be some, you know, your venues may be very similar, but it's likely that there are differentiators. And so knowing those from the core and which couples are attracting them, you know, it can probably be quite tempting to bucket them all together and market them similarly, when actually you're likely to get the right couples with the right budget, and higher conversions if you're targeting them from the off, right? So yeah, great point, Beth. And that runs through the whole kind of marketing funnel as well.
Yeah, I think it's easy when you're within a collection of venue to fall into the trap of kind of similar strategies for your venues, but each venue, no matter what, is different. So make sure that you remember that when you're doing your marketing initiatives and activities.
Yeah, and I think that goes as well for hotel, I don't want to say chains, but groups of hotels as well, because obviously there's the headquarter brand, and then you've got your brand below it, which you may not really think of it as a brand, because obviously you're still working for your kind of hotel group, but actually it's likely that your wedding channels do actually need their own brand, and this is why we're now talking about differentiating it from headquarters. So making sure that the tone of voice is more kind of emotive than perhaps booking a night stay there would be. The imagery, the photo shoots, and the social media. So exactly what Beth's just said, for individual venue brands, you can also apply to your individual venue below a hotel group. Does that make sense, Beth?
Yeah, completely agree. It's I think that's where it can become difficult when you've got that big top umbrella and then you've got your individual venues, because it's again, it's easy to fall into the kind of same type of messaging, but in many ways, actually having that umbrella kind of gives you that stature that you would want as any business, but then you can kind of differentiate with each individual venue to have kind of personality, again, your brand, like what's coming through in your tone of voice. That's what makes you individual from a venue specific basis.
Yeah, for sure. At Merlin we were quite lucky, because I think over the years our head of events had kind of worn down HQ, and we managed to get our own website, and we kind of created our own brand, which was Merlin Events, and that really helped in marketing ourselves as corporate events and as private events, and we made sure that our tone of voice was quite different to those of each attraction, because as you can imagine, if you're a business, you're not necessarily going to have a Christmas party at London Dungeon with the type of tone of voice that they have on their website, so we had to differentiate ourselves that way. And I know that's a bit off piece as an example, it's not weddings, but even the London Eye, the way that the tone of voice on the London Eye for daily tickets is completely different to that of hosting your wedding. And so we really tried to differentiate those brands, even though it was underneath the one umbrella brand. So it is a difficult kind of path to navigate, but I think as long as you always remember, these are weddings, this is motive, like these are the couples that we're reaching and that we want to reach.
And make them feel special. I like totally get it with if your marketing department as well is not only just covering weddings, you're also doing corporate events, and if you're doing all the activities, it's like you have to like force yourself to like take the corporate hat off, put the wedding hat on, because couples want to be treated special, unique. They're the only people in the world right now that's important. It's their day, they're getting married. So it's like, if you've got that corporate hat on going into that conversation, it's likely that you aren't potentially going to get the visit booked or even the booking, because they need to feel that emotion coming from you, which
and the same across all the channels, isn't it, Beth? Like same across all the channels, and in person kind of conversations, and then across all the channels as well. It's really hard to make that switch, but it has to be done.
And again, that just comes back to my point on the your couple target audience and how you can best engage with them, and just remember that this is their first time, they've never likely done anything like this before, they're very much novices in terms of event planning, so how can you be supportive and help them in that journey through your marketing channels as well as on the phone or
absolutely
person.
Thank you. So the next kind of tip, and I know this might seem like we're teaching you to suck eggs, but honestly, I think I think when you have so many assets for so many venues and also so many brands, like we just said, you've done all that research and you've looked at the couples that you want to target, and so you have got kind of a set of rules that you kind of need to, or guidelines, let's call them, that's why they're called brand guidelines, but you know, a set of guidelines that you kind of need to adhere to and stick to if you want that brand salience to come through and you want to target those couples. So Beth, tell us how you do it at Artemis, because you're managing so many different brands. How do you kind of keep that in order and also communicate those brands to the team and make sure that they have the assets they need and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of documentation for one, but I think it starts right at the top of the journey. So, you know, whenever you're bringing in new team members, make sure that your kind of onboarding is strong. You have a dedicated place for each venue, each brand, that everyone knows, be it, you know, in head office or at the venue itself, that everyone knows how to gather that information on each of your venues, and then make sure that you're training thoroughly on the brand from the start, going as granular as like how to speak about that brand to couples, ensuring that you know who all the key stakeholders are across the different teams as well that would need to get access to that brand and understand it. So we have kind of brand decks for each venues, shared folders as I just mentioned as well, and then having brand champions. So this can be multiple people. So you know, for Artemis we have a kind of brand champion that focuses on our copy and ensuring that our tone of voice is consistent, and they're constantly looking at if there's a need to iterate it or change dependent on the market requirements, depending on couples that are coming through our doors. And then we also have kind of a brand advocate per venue as well, who manages the all marketing initiatives across that particular venue. So they really like adopt the venue, they know it inside out, and that just helps us in terms of that consistency, that we've got multiple people that are like constantly protecting the brand and ensuring that we're talking about the venues in the right way.
Yeah, amazing. I think brand champion or champions plural, it depends on how big your team is, isn't it? It's really important. Like I was definitely Merlin's brand champion, making sure that Merlin events had a space on, you know, wherever, and we'll go into that in a minute. But yeah, just having that. I know if you're a smaller marketing team, you might just be one person managing the marketing for like 3, 4, 5, however many venues, you know, you are that brand champion, but you can also instill that kind of behavior in other members of the sales team or wedding coordinators as well, you know, and take someone under your wing and make sure that they also are hot on it too. So great advice there. Thank you, Beth. Marketing automation is your best friend when you are in a group, when you have multiple brands and when you have, you know, multiple venues, even with one umbrella brand. So yeah, Beth, give us an insight into how you use automation and the rest of it within Artemis.
So I mean, as you know, Dorothy, a big fan of automation. I think that stems from my bride book days heavily. But I think it's just important to look at your systems, and especially if you're a small team, if you've only got 1, 2 of you, look at kind of your funnel overall and look at the places where you can put software solutions in place that will support you in terms of saving time. So we have a CRM system, which is Microsoft Dynamics. All our kind of leads, all our leads, information about couples, everything goes through that system. And then from there, we've got kind of a number of email funnels that support us in terms of taking couples on to the next stages. So from the point a couple inquires to us, they'll get a response before our sales team picks up the phone and talks to them. And then we have kind of multiple journeys going through the overall funnel. So it's just really trying to kind of help you in terms of saving time, supporting couples with that journey that they're going on. And then I guess templated communication and processes, anything from how-to guides, system best practices, journals about kind of experiences, learnings that you've had, so that if anyone new joins the team, they can, you know, pick up that information really quickly, what's gone well before, what hasn't gone well. As I said, I'm personally a huge fan of documentation, so whenever we're doing anything new or we've just done a big initiative, we make sure we take the time to take a step back, write down our learnings, so that moving forward, either we don't do things again that went badly, or we know how and what the best practices are going forward.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, it's something's just popped into my head. Our head of data and ops, who you know well, Beth Martine, he always says to me, Dorothy, if you're doing something more than like 3 times a day or 3 times a week or whatever, how can you streamline it? Like, how can you make sure that you're not doing that repetitive task again and again and again? And if it's sending an inquiry email, or it's sending out a brochure to couples, or whatever that might be, email automation, or, you know, using your CRM system is your best friend. And that it always comes into my mind whenever I'm doing something 4 times, and I'm like, how can I make this easier, and how can I make this process better? So it's a really good thing to check in with yourself.
It's just so important, because it is like a thing of you just wasting time. And I think Martine's comments have probably instilled in me a bit too heavily, actually, but it's just saving time. And when you are a small team, you need that time. Your priority should always be, how can I speak to as many couples as possible? How can I look at getting more leads in that bucket? That's your priority. So where you can install a new software, look at automation, look at improving a process, it might feel like it's going to take a lot of time to do it, but actually in the long run you'll be saving so much time.
I'll also chuck into this bucket, look at platforms like Bridebook.
Yes,
I work for Bridebook, but I think Beth will back me up here in saying that, you know, automation's great, and also just using other platforms where we're doing the hard work for you in terms of a lot of that marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I use Bridebook Insights, the UK Wedding Report, use massively, always talking to Katie, my account manager. You know, you guys are kind of seeing insights across thousands and thousands of couples coming through the doors, so 100% make sure you're using your Bridebook account manager and the support that you get.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you. That was that section done. Next, we're going to talk about capitalizing on your umbrella brands. This is kind of more relevant to, I suppose, hotel groups, or to venues that were like Merlin, where they've all got an individual brand, but they might be below a larger corporation, or whatever that might look like for you. But I think there's still things here that are relevant for smaller venue groups as well. So we were having a discussion about, you know, as a wedding venue that is part of a hotel or something like that, how can you really capitalize on the great brands that you actually are a part of? And you know, you've got a lot of brand salience if you're someone like Marriott or McDonald, one of these kind of big groups. So how can you actually use that to your advantage? Do you want to go through these, Beth, and just give us a bit of an overview of what we chatted about?
So I think to me on these points, it's kind of, you've got so much potential with your real estate, but obviously dependent on HQ, dependent on what you're kind of allowed to do, it can be limiting. So I think where my recommendation comes in here is, like, based on that space that you have got, how can you kind of test new initiatives using that space? So if you've got kind of a 1-page weddings dedicated space, can you add like a snack bar that kind of promotes an offer or an open event, or some form of kind of initiative, a late availability offer, etc., that you can test out to see what the kind of interest or engagement is there, because that will then help you to understand what's potentially interesting your couples, or you know, driving leads into the bucket. So really try and maximize the potential of that space. Building out your wedding and I guess that falls into like the quick wins as well. Like, what are those quick things? There's so many like great softwares out there these days that even if you don't feel like you have the tech know-how to be able to do that, there's like a lot of platforms that you can kind of just plug in to test pop-ups and things like that, just so that you're kind of maximizing the potential of that space. So that's something that I would definitely recommend. And I think that was it on my points, actually.
Yeah, I think building out your wedding presence, we were discussing possibly having like a separate social media channel.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't apologize. We discussed a lot of points, Beth. But go for it if you want to take that.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, bob on. So like, you know, with Marriott, Hilton, Handpicked Hotels, for example, these are all kind of big brands. And I think I'll use Handpicked Hotels as an example. I don't know if they're here, but they have their dedicated website. They then have their Instagram channels, but within their Instagram channels, rather than having a separate one for their weddings, they actually use their highlights really well on Instagram. So they have a weddings highlights in Instagram, which they can then use to promote wedding specific content, and then they feed the rest of the wedding content in and around the other content that they have of things that are going on, which I thought was a really smart way to get around it. Even if you feel like, oh, I'm not allowed, or I can't have a specific wedding Instagram social channel for your venue, that's actually a really smart way to work around that. Obviously the aim would be to have your own wedding thing, but it's not always possible. So so that was a kind of smart thing that I saw.
Yeah, I love that. And there's always ways of finding space to promote weddings, whether it's on, you know, social media or a banner on the website, or like think about, you know, list out all the quick wins. And then we're going to talk about how to prove the worth of your weddings anyway, which will obviously play into campaigning for real estate space. But yeah, list out all the quick wins and see what you can do and test what will have an impact. And like Beth said, she always does some documentation afterwards on the test to see what can we iterate on, you know, what didn't work, and share that with the other venues in your hotel group or within your specific brands. You know, the sharing is caring, which we'll get onto. So we also spoke about taking a look at other successful wedding venue websites. And I know this might seem like a no-brainer, but for those websites that are dedicated wedding venues, you would like to emulate them ultimately in the end, even if you might not necessarily have the real estate space that you would like, but looking at what information they include, what imagery do they use. Obviously, all of this, take it with a pinch of salt because it's within your own brand, as we said at the beginning, after doing your audit of which couples are coming through the door and what do those personas look like. But what kind of information are they actually including? And are you also including that much, or do you literally just have the price on one picture? Like, you know, it's really building out that presence, and how easy is it to contact the weddings team? Like, is it hard on your website as opposed to a dedicated venue? And then we've spoken about a dedicated wedding Instagram, but again, there are other ways of doing it, like highlights, and occasionally getting onto that main Instagram space. But would you say this is like a good idea, Beth, to look at other wedding venue websites? And
yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing that I would say from COVID, a good thing, let's say, that's fallen out of COVID is that as an industry we're more connected, and you know, everyone's looking at each other's websites, and that's what you should be doing. Like, and as well for your own portfolio, make sure that you're looking at each other's as well, because obviously there might be different teams that work on different things, or it could be one. But making sure that you're aware of what other venues are doing within your collection, but yeah, looking at who's around you, looking at what they're doing, and again, why you're different, and then how that can then play into the real estate that you have available to you. But what I would always say is to prioritize the important information, which I know you're going to come on to, but you know, pricing, what availability, making sure it's really easy to contact you. Don't overwhelm couples with lots of information, don't overcomplicate it. Like, you know, sadly, we are of a generation, we have very short attention spans, so we just want the information quick and easy. So yeah, prioritizing the important stuff so that you can get those messages across.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that just popped into my head, like I'm looking at other, if you are a hotel group, like looking at other hotel groups to see how they're possibly using, the website or their real estate to their advantage, because it might be that you are able to go to a general manager and be like, look how X hotel chain is doing things. We could take a leaf out of their book, especially if it's another hotel brand that is either aspirational to you or is your competitor, or so I think using that kind of collateral to your advantage is also very useful, as well as looking at specific wedding venues to emulate. So as Beth was saying, this is some of the important kind of information. So we did a survey to 5,500 couples at the beginning of this year in February, and we published this 125-page report, which hopefully you have read, and if not, we can absolutely send it to you. But one of the questions, say again, Beth.
I'm just gonna say, do read it. It's so valuable. It's one of my favorite points of the year when I get the private report.
How many of them did you do, Beth? Probably like 5.
A few. Yeah,
we do them every year, guys, so it's a great piece of learning, and we try and update it as much as possible. So top 10 important types of venue information. So these are the type, if you've got a small portion of your website, or whatever that might look like, these are the pieces of information that you absolutely must convey. So at the top was pricing was the most important to couples as a type of information. So as clear and as self-explanatory as possible is the best way to go. And then photos of the interior, really, really important, especially if it's set up for a wedding. Like, we always recommend using dressed spaces as opposed to, I know it's very difficult with hotels, you may have a conference room that becomes, you've got a picture of it set up for a conference, and then you are asking couples to use their wildest imagination, but they just want to be able to make that a bit easier for them to be able to imagine that. And so having a dress space and being able to showcase those photos where possible is really, really important.
I think as well, just on that point, Dorothy, because obviously you can't dress it as a wedding all the time, right? So it's impossible. So how can you make sure that you have that imagery readily available on the show round? So be it kind of like image boards that you can just put up on an A board, or iPad images, just like how can you showcase what it could be? Because if it's just you walk in a room and it's round tables and grey, you're not going to sell it. So think a bit outside the box there, I guess.
I love that. Like, especially so in person, like having those, and every venue should be doing this anyway, because venues aren't always dressed, but also on the website you could possibly have a picture of it in its, if you haven't got much space, you can have a picture of it in conference mode, and then a button that says view for a wedding setup, and then a picture pops up and it's a wedding. Like, there are lots of hacky workarounds, I think, that would just communicate more to the couple. So I think that's like you say, Beth, thinking outside the box with those things is paramount. And then photos from real life events, obviously it's great to show couples what a real venue only if it looks great. You obviously don't want like just a picture of, I don't know, the tables at the end of the night, but that's obvious. But like aspirational photos from real life events was another really important thing that couples wanted to see. And then this is like not necessarily important information on the website, but this is important characteristics that couples wanted and kind of looked at when considering to go and view a venue or not. So price and budget was obviously really, really important, followed by beautiful grounds and views. So obviously, it's very tempting to only showcase the interior of our venues, but actually a lot of couples want these beautiful grounds if you have them, and especially if you're a hotel with like a really beautiful front and or back whatever garden, then like showcase that, because I think if they wouldn't know about it, they'd probably assume you didn't have anything like that. So definitely showcase that.
One question that I always get asked on that one, because obviously hotels can be like in inner cities as well, so you might think like, I don't have beautiful grounds. You might not have beautiful grounds, but if you're in a city, you have a lot of iconic locations. So don't just get shut off by that, but take opportunities, do a Photoshop around the city with a couple that can showcase all those like great spots that are around you. That's actually really cool, very millennial, edgy vibes. So, don't just think, oh, I've not got any green. Like, you have so much opportunity around your venue.
Yeah, I think that is such a great point, Beth. Like, it says their exterior style. So even if you're like a brutalistic hotel, like whatever, like you're the Barbican or like whatever.
Yeah, so much around there.
Yeah, showcase that, because there's always, and especially, the couples that are coming through your door, they're looking for that.
Yeah.
They're going to your venue because it's unique
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, brilliant. Great tip. And then overnight accommodation for guests. Well, for hotels, this is great, because we already know that overnight accommodation is an option. So you've already got that to your advantage, which is fantastic. And then helpful and friendly staff. So I know it's really hard to showcase testimonials on all of your channels, but you have to. It's so important, isn't it, Beth? I'm sure you use testimonials at almost every step of your journey.
Yeah, because it's feedback. Feedback's just fundamental to us as businesses. So if you can get as many reviews, testimonials, survey responses as possible, it's just valuable, and then share them as much as physically possible. Yeah. Can't say any more or less there.
Definitely. And we're actually going to talk more about that in this section as well, because it's like feedback is queen. So so in this section, we're going to talk about proving the worth of weddings to a HQ or head office, and also stakeholder management, which is relevant for any group, not just the ones with umbrella brands. So Beth, tell us more about how you kind of divvy out your budget depending on where things are coming from and how you track and what that process looks like for you at Artemis.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, so this kind of comes back again to that overall customer journey. So make sure that you've plotted out your customer journey from the point of campaign all the way at the top through to booking, and then obviously you would continue on. But for marketing head up here, I'm going to be up here. We essentially make sure that we're kind of closely tracking and monitoring where our leads are coming from. So every campaign that we do, we have tracking links set up, so that the leads that are funneling into our CRM are tracked and monitored, and that basically allows for me to understand what percentage of leads are coming from each channel source, and then from there we're able to kind of make smart decisions on where we allocate our budget. So if a member of my team came to me and was like, we want to spend X on this, I'd say, well, based on what we know, what do we expect that to result in terms of a lead increase? So it's just really kind of having close eyes on what activity you're doing, what that's then driving in terms of web traffic into leads, and then how that then impacts the rest of the funnel. And if you can track that all the way to booking, then you're on to a winner, because you then know how much value you're producing for the business as a result of the campaigns that you're running through and the channels that you have. So that's to me is fundamental to understanding how to plot your marketing budget. And then from working with, again, website listing sites as well, making sure that that's kind of closely monitored so that you know what value they're producing, and asking couples. They're the number one source of information for you. So be it on a show round, in a survey, it can be a bit of a funny question, can't it? It's like, oh, where have you found us? But if you can feed that in and start to get that feedback, at least you'll know in your head, oh, actually bride books come up quite a lot, or oh, I found you on Instagram, like, oh, okay, we're getting more people on Instagram, like we should put more into that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with with sites like Bridebook, often our couples, they go on to your listing on Bridebook, and then they'll find your website directly. So I think it's always important, if you are listing, of course you can be like, okay, they found us on Google, but if you really want to know like the return on investment of these channels, like it's always great to ask, give Bridebook or give whatever listing site as a source for them to tick in the because they'll remember if they saw you on there. And maybe give them multiple choice as well, so that they can say, okay, we found you here, here, and here, so that you know whether or not you've got a presence on those platforms, right?
Yeah, I think as well, it was in your report actually, I think, is it a couple will go to 3 different sources now
Yeah.
before they inquire. So
Yeah.
they'll go to Brightbook, find you on Brightbook, then they'll go to Google, search the venue, go on their website, and then they're probably going to go on Instagram as well and check out your like general personality and brand through Instagram. And actually that's mad, but you know, they've initially found you on, say, Brightbook. So it is important to try and kind of untap that and understand it. They don't make it easy for us, do they?
No, they don't, without being like, where did you find us?
Yeah.
Like, was it private?
Light on them.
Yeah, interrogation. I think on the other side of this as well, that's just popped into my head. When I was at Merlin, we also always used to track our turn down reasons. So like, why did a couple turn us down? And that can also inform your future strategy and the way that you're communicating things. If the budget exceeded their expectation, why is that? Where are you putting a lower budget? Is there have you got a lower budget listed on Brightbook as opposed to your website? Like ensuring channel consistency and all that kind of stuff. You can audit that by looking at like turn down reasons. It's not just about the good things, is it, Beth? It's not just about the, where am I getting all my inquiries from? It's also, taking the, I suppose they're negatives, but taking the constant improvements that you can make and doing so and acting on that.
You could argue that that's more important, really, right? Like the negative, or what you would see as negative feedback, that's actually your areas for improvement and your potential where you can lift bookings or lift leads further. I always go back to Hamish's example when I chat to anyone really about feedback, because I remember at Headser they just kept missing bookings, and they looked at their survey and saw that it was because of the carpet. They kept getting negative feedback about their carpet, so they changed their carpet, and I think it increased their bookings by like 14% or something silly.
There you go.
So there you go.
It's even if they loved that carpet dearly, it wasn't good for business.
It wasn't good for business.
Yeah, and obviously, like, you can share these turn down reasons with your other venues.
Yeah.
And we will talk about that, but sharing that and understanding what they're doing differently, or is there a part of the funnel that's slightly different that we're not capitalizing on?
Yeah, and looking at that funnel and seeing where your conversion percentages are missing.
Exactly. Money talks, guys. So weddings make a lot of money. Like they're pretty well. What I mean is they're relatively low cost for the amount of money that people are spending on them. So I think knowing your impact on the profit and loss is really important. And this certainly for me at Merlin was paramount in terms of getting key stakeholders to give us budget or to give us real estate on the website. We were able to go and say, look, events are contributing X amount of your overall revenue, but also not just revenue, profit, because we were so low in cost. And so I think that really spoke to them, and that we were able to then campaign for more and more from the umbrella brand because we were proving our worth. And Beth, I think you agree it's the same with kind of all stakeholders. Within a venue group, the people that are managing the venue, the general managers, like knowing the impact of weddings on profit is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're majority exclusive use weddings, so it is slightly different. I think we're definitely defenders of the value for weddings, but yeah, like completely. I think if you're not, to me, it comes back to your data, really understanding on a per level, per month, per day of the week, that granular, like how much money you're generating for the business per wedding, and looking at your P&L, and being able to just have those numbers, that data readily to hand, so that you can defend it if you ever come in against kind of, we don't know why we're putting X amount of marketing budget into weddings. Well, this is why, because this is how much money we're making per wedding. This is what, if we increase from, even if you're only doing like 20 weddings a year to 30, this is what the benefit will be for the business. And it's only you that's going to be able to defend the wedding market within your business if that's your role. So I think just preparing yourself and making sure that you have the data to back up the reasons why.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing your data is key. I think also there's a kind of interpersonal thing to be done here with ringing the bell internally. And what we mean by that is like make a song and dance of, when you've converted a couple to a booking, and that booking is however X thousands of pounds, like, is there internal comms that you can do in order to spread the news wider? And people get excited when they see that money and they see, the plan for the wedding or whatever it is, like, especially that figure. And especially, you might be regularly bringing weddings in and people just don't have visibility on it. And as soon as they get visibility, the excitement builds. And I think that stakeholders really, really love seeing that come in. So that's just food for thought, really. Like, is there a way that you can champion the revenue and the hard work, or a great review from a couple, or whatever that might be, like a little narrative every month or every week, or even just when sales come in? Is there something you can do internally within your venue group and within your hotel group to champion it, really, and like give yourselves a pat on the back?
And it's hard, right? Like getting wedding bookings is not easy. You're like, that couple is choosing to have one of their most memorable and special days of their life with you as a venue. And the stages that you do have to go through to get to that booking it's a lot. It's a big emotional purchase. So 100% celebrate it, share it, make sure people are aware of the stages that you have to go through in order to get that booking.
Yeah, I mean, even sharing like key objectives and stuff like that. Like, if there was an objective that you overcame, like detail that, because you could have, and then you could have lost like, $8,000 of business, but you didn't, because you overcame the objective. And it's like, I guess telling that story in a concise and kind of friendly way for stakeholders is really important. And we've also put here, be a champion of weddings, because at the end of the day, it's going to be you guys that stand up for weddings.
Wave the flag. Wave the wedding flag.
Wave the wedding flag. 100%. Like, just never get tired of it. Keep going, even if there are stakeholders that are more focused on other areas of the business. You have to represent. So that's Money Talks. We talked about this multiple times. Hamish is a huge advocate of feedback. We use it a lot at Bridebook to make our product and our service even better constantly, and it's also very applicable for venues and couples. So do you want to give us an overview of these points, Beth, and how you do it as well?
Yeah, I keep coming back to the funnel. I feel like I'm flogging a dead horse, but it's looking at the points in your journey where you can gather feedback, obviously without it being too overwhelming for couples. But if it's post inquiry and they've fallen off, you can give someone a call, like, or if post visit, whether they book or not, post booking, post wedding, look at those points across the funnel, and just, even if it's a few questions versus a massive survey, but when you're kind of curating your questions, what are the important things that you need to learn as a business? Where along the funnel does the percentage drop seem to be, if there's like a low conversion visit booked to visit completed, for example? Why is it that people are booking but they're not actually attending? So look at your funnel, look at where your percentages are, and then curate questions to support that. Don't be scared to get on the phone and ask. Generally people will talk to you. And as we said, don't ignore the negative feedback. And then once you've got all that feedback, read it and build solutions off it. It's not enough to just be like, here's a load of data. How can you then make it actionable and create good solutions that are going to better the business as a result? And that's what you present to your stakeholders.
Absolutely. And this will tell you a lot about your individual venues as well. Like, if you're asking the same questions and you're getting different feedback for each venue, then you know where you're like Beth said, the points that you need to work on for each venue, rather than just assuming that you might have the same problem across them all. And then you might waste time by trying to solve something that isn't even an issue, or trying to not solve something that is an issue.
And you're just kind of going in the dark, like just blind, aren't you, really, without that feedback? So
exactly. And we've also put here, gather feedback that HQ can use for overnight stays. So like, give something back to your umbrella brand, because that will always help. And it will also start, they'll start thinking, oh, actually, like that wedding had a really positive impact on our reviews. 30 guests that stayed have all, they weren't all, but 15 guests out of 30 that stayed have all left us a positive, incentivize couples to incentivize their guests to leave feedback.
I love that. Sorry, I missed that one. I love that idea. That's such a good idea, take that one with me. Thanks.
Use it, and get them to, and then you can give back to your umbrella brand and be like, look, these 15 guests have absolutely loved staying here. They were all here for a wedding, by the way, which cost X amount, by the way. And you just keep banging that drum and you keep proving your worth. So that's a kind of cool give back that you can do. This is, an obvious point, but regularly communicate with key stakeholders. Like I remember at Merlin, we always, kind of had to get ourselves into main business forums in order to be either at the forefront of what was happening within our venues that might affect us and our bottom line, in order to update them on what was happening with events and weddings, so that they could factor that into their future plans for the venue. All these different kinds of points about just regular communication, and having really good relationships with the central marketing team if you're an umbrella brand is so important. Like I actually made some really good friends at Merlin, but to begin with, I knew I had to build those relationships in order to try and get the real estate, to try and get their support on marketing campaigns, sometimes borrow a bit of their budget. Like it's all it's a two-sided thing. They give you something, you can give them something back. So remember to use these relationships when trying to get more kind of marketing presence. Is there anything you'd add on these points, Beth?
No, just that communication is key. I mean, at Artemis, we have so many different stakeholders in the sense that we have our executive team, we have venue owners with our partner venues, we have our teams on the ground at the venues, then we have our different departments in head office. So there's constantly kind of, it could be for one project, there could be 15 people that need to be aware of everything that's happening. So for example, we've just updated our menus across the venues. So that is a huge project, because not only are we needing to kind of make sure that it's the new menus are live across digital means, they need to be printed and sent to the venues. Each of the venues teams needs to be trained on the new menus. The sales team needs to be trained. So there's so many kind of moving parts to that. So communication and kind of having that awareness, making sure you've got a strong plan, a timeline. I use Excel for a tracker so that every step's monitored. Keeping kind of communication across all the different people. It's hard when you're in a collection of venues. So use the kind of simple tools as well, just to kind of keep track of everything and make sure that communication across the board's key. It's almost kind of like over communicate, so that nothing's missed, and then once you've done it, turn it into a process. So make sure you've got that documented, learn from it, process it. Then when you change the menus again, which I hope is not going to be for a while for us, it's I mean,
some venues change them every season, right? I remember at Merlin we changed them for spring, summer, autumn, winter, because we were using seasonal produce, or our suppliers were. So as long as you've got that, you can replicate that process with as many venues as you need to. So super smart. Ensuring consistency in marketing and ops. So sharing is caring. I think I've said this like 10 times, probably as much as Beth said funnel within this within this webinar. But yeah, it's really, really important. And I know you do a lot of this, Beth, don't you? Like sharing between the kind of venue teams, but I think you have one central sales team, and so you always are adapting and sharing best practice between each other. So tell us a bit more about that and how you do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we are lucky. We've got a central sales team, we've got a central marketing team, but it's just tapping into tapping into the team on a daily, weekly basis to see what everyone's learned that week. If you've got people that are working across the different venues, what senses are you getting from from anything, from kind of couple trends? Does there seem a shift in terms of what you'd expect from an inquiry lead volume based on your typical kind of peaks and troughs of the year? If one of your venues is launching a new marketing initiatives, what learnings can you take from that, and how can you feed that into the other venues? I guess overall the benefit of you as a collection of venues is that you can learn from each other, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you still can't have that differentiating factors. It's just what can you kind of take in learnings and then apply it to your other venues. So yeah, keep sharing. Sharing is 100% caring. And just make sure that you're constantly asking the questions as well, like, what have you learned this week? How did that go?
Yeah, totally. And I think we've popped it down here, create some templates for your staff. So like, what I mean by this is, like, obviously every single venue is going to need a different approach depending on the kind of couples that they attract and market to. Yeah. But when we say templates, we mean, like, are there specific questions that you absolutely have to ask on the show round in order to get the right information and further qualify that couple? Like, is there, do you have new staff that have just joined that don't necessarily know everything about weddings and they're more event coordinators, or they're doing a show round and they've always done corporate event show rounds? Do they need more guidance? And are there templates that you've got in place so that you don't have to kind of go over it again and again, and you can train up new staff easily, so that they ensure a consistent experience with the other members of staff that you might have that are wedding experts, things like that. Just
what I would just say on that point, in a cautious sense, is like, make sure that they're still natural. So there's such a fine line and a balance there, because obviously, yes, you should template things, and kind of it comes back to time, saving time, as we were talking about earlier, but don't kind of miss those natural points of kind of general conversation. These are still human beings. You're not a robot. Treat them like human beings and make them feel special, but like, use those kind of general practices to help you kind of get the results, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Be the wedding expert. So I think, one of the questions that we've got coming up from a venue is kind of, does being a hotel group have a detrimental impact on what couples may think of us when inquiring for a wedding, considering that we're not a specific wedding venue? So I think that it's just important to remind yourself and your teams to be the wedding experts. Like, okay, yes, we're part of a hotel chain, or okay, yes, we're part of a group of venues, but we absolutely are wedding experts, and we live and breathe weddings, and we want to make this day as special as possible for you. Just things to keep in mind. Replying to wedding inquiries is different to corporate events. Like Beth said, sometimes you might have a corporate events hat on, and then you might have to switch it out for what, you might be replying to inquiries all on the same day, and you may be using a tone of voice that is more corporate than is emotive. And this is a couple, not a business. They're paying for this out of their own, or their parents, or whoever's money. It's important to remember that. So I think making that actual switch from which hat you're going to wear is really important. Like Beth said already, train the team and create a group of wedding experts and advocates. Like, make sure they understand this is an emotional sale, as it were, and that when they do show rounds and when they do speak to couples, that they are remembering that and they're letting those natural moments happen, but also they're guiding couples, because couples have never done this before. And so if you're guiding couples, they will have more trust. They think, okay, you're a hotel, but you seem to know a lot about what we need to do. And so that gives me ultimate faith, which is great. Make sure your team understand the moving parts of a wedding and the process for couples inside and out. So, each venue, and I'm sure you can vouch for this, Beth, each venue might have a different process. And so, your sales team knowing those processes, if there's only one sales team, is really important, so that, they don't confuse couples, or, you just want to make the journey as easy as possible for couples, really. and then ensure your employees are well trained on emotional selling and that's us handing, but I meant handling couples. Little typo. And just making sure that they understand the differentiation between this and some, other events that you may be running. And then we have said to, if you can, it's great to hire sales and event managers with wedding backgrounds, but Beth made a really valid point that just a passion for weddings and just having that love for this industry and love for couples is enough often.
Yeah, I think so, massively. I think you can, when you're recruiting, it can probably seem like the easy option to go for someone that's got the wedding background, although that might be quite rare these days, I don't know. But I think it's just more that they're emotive, they're a people person, they're going to be able to have normal, natural conversations with couples, and care, and actually just care about the fact that it's a couple's very important day. So I think, to me, that's more important when looking for kind of sales or event management roles than the wedding experience. That can be taught, brands can be taught, values can be taught, but that kind of natural being able to kind of connect with a couple about this special day is the most important thing when you're hiring in your team.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. So we have time just for a couple of questions. So we've spoken about this already, Beth, haven't we? But, does it put a wedding couple off when they see, that you're a group venue or that you're part of a hotel, and are, single individually run and operated venues seen more favorably? What do you think, Beth?
You know what? I don't think it necessarily puts them off. I think this, and it comes back to like that individual branding and like personality of a venue. Each venue, wherever they are, is different. Your building's different, your team is different. So I think it is just really taking that time to understand what differentiates you, and then using your marketing channels to share that narrative, and heavily relying on your marketing channels to sell that story. And then again, as we said, like coming back to what your real estate is and making sure that that story continues onto that web page or multiple pages. I think couples, the benefits, especially if you're a venue with like accommodation, so if you're a hotel, you have accommodation, you've got space for the entire family, like you're so knowledgeable. I think this kind of goes on to the second question as well, like it's just those differentiating points. And I know that for collections of venues, it can feel like, oh well, because we're a group, like people aren't interested, but I don't think that's the case, because a couple's just looking to find their venue that speaks to them. So
yeah, absolutely. And so you've kind of answered both of those there, Beth.
There you go, double whammy.
Perfect. We'll just do these two more. So how do you get around head office marketing standards which are not wedding friendly? This is a huge challenge for hotel chains, because they literally are given a tiny little bit on the website sometimes, not in every case. And it's the imagery and the tone of voice and everything just may not be friendly for weddings. So we've already given some tips, but is there anything you would say, just to summarize, Beth, like getting over this challenge?
Yeah, I think as well, it's kind of important to just take a step back and understand why weddings aren't seen as important, or if there's negative perceptions within the business about weddings, like what are they? And from that, then you can kind of go away and do your research and gather the feedback, and pull together a bit more of a cohesive kind of plan that allows you to say, like, this is why this is important. So we have touched on a lot of these things, but yeah, don't just think about the wedding itself. What are the benefits to the business of wedding cost, catering, accommodation, additional spend opportunities? As well, look at your pricing. Inflation's just happened, changes in the kind of years as well. It's just always kind of working to kind of promote and showcase weddings to the best that they can be. But again, it is tough.
Yeah, absolutely. We've just had a question come in from Jennifer. Being a specialist wedding venue, do you think there are benefits to running events to get more people through the doors in the first instance? I would say absolutely yes. I know that heads are a massive fan of showcases.
Yeah, open event. Yeah, we host open events very regularly. Obviously, it becomes more difficult during summer, but yeah, get as many people through that door as possible. You know, do open event showcases, do open nights. If you've got weddings at the weekend, you've got evenings. Even open days, in the days, like couples will come and visit. It's just making sure as many opportunities as possible to get people to be able to come and visit.
Absolutely. We did I did a webinar with Hamish earlier this year, actually, Jennifer, on wedding showcases and how best to run them and how heads to do them, and how other venues can do them too. So I can absolutely send that to you as a follow-up. So we'll get that sent. I think that we're gonna have to call it a day there, because it's 11 and I think we've got through a lot. So please do pop in the chat, and if you found that useful, and any feedback for us would be really great, so that we can obviously, well, feedback, we've spoken about it so much. I will send you around a feedback form so you can let us know what you thought, and if there's anything you felt was missing, or if there's anything else that you'd like us to discuss in the future. Yes, Maria, I absolutely can send you the showcase webinar. I'll send it around to everybody anyway in follow-up. But just a big thank you to you, really, Beth, and Artemis, for letting us have you for an hour of your day, and more, because you know, preparation, etc. But if anybody would like to chat to Artemis or chat to Bridebook about managing their venue or increasing quality inquiries, then I will, you know, put the details in the follow-up email, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you about improving your business. But I hope you all have just the best sunny day. Linz has said, how do I get a copy of the Bridebook report? I will send you the Bridebook Venue Academy in follow-up to this webinar, that has all of our reports, all of our webinars, and all of the good content, so that you can download it and peruse at your leisure. So yeah, thank you, Beth.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.